All right, hey people, Russ Jensen. So it's 4:30 on the 6th of January, 2017. I've been kind of busy on a few things, but um, I want to get back on talking about challenging jurisdiction because that's what we have to do. That's the only way that we're going to be able to get out of this particular mess that we find ourselves in. Now, we can't sue the state directly, so they claim, because we have the sovereign immunity. So the way we have to go about challenging jurisdiction properly is, well, we have to challenge their um, the fact that they have failed in their known duties to us. You know, we've talked about jurisdiction, understanding the meaning of that word and what it means. It really means it's law spoken, law pronounced. Jury, juris is law, diction is speak. So the law spoken, jurisdiction is that. What law is applying? How does it apply? Now, you have to understand three other little words that we need to start understanding with the meaning, because these are the things that they use against us in order to drag us in to a jurisdiction that, first of all, is not constitutional. They don't have any authority to do. It's how they get us on every other little thing. So there's presumption, there's prima facie, and nexus. Now, the definition of presumption is a reason or an evidence of something that creates probabilities to a belief. And I guess legal definition is a legal inference as to the existence or truth of a fact not certainly known that is drawn from the known or proved existence of some other fact. Now, they always do that shit in these legal uh, definitions. But it's like, let's say that we're inside. We have a window out to the looking to the outside, and we see light shining outside the window, and we can make a presumption based on our past experience that that light is being produced by the sun. You know, so that could be a truthful fact, but it certainly is not known. We're just seeing light coming in through the window, but we don't see the actual sun itself. So, keeping that in mind, then let's go to the next definition of prima facie, which is basically means at first view, on first appearance, absent from other information or evidence. In the legal vernacular, this is legally sufficient to establish a fact or a case unless disproved. So prima facie is just evidence of a fact, but it's not the fact itself, and it can be challenged or disproved. So we then, now knowing the definition, so what we have is a light shining through a window. We can't see the source of the light, we just see light. So we can make the presumption that it's being generated by the sun. On first view, that would be legally sufficient to establish that as a fact unless it was challenged. Now, if we walked outside and see that it's nighttime, the sun's not there, but that light is being produced by a gigantic spotlight, that would be sufficient to challenge the prima facie fact of sun being producing that light. So now the new fact that's in evidence is the fact that it's being produced by that spotlight. So the first fact of the sun has been displaced, has been disproved, and the actual evidence, now that we have better evidence, is what comes into play. And that's what they do all the time. Now, we talked about the fact that for federal legislative acts to be applicable to the general population out here in the states of the Union, it has to be published in a federal register. Even its application or being put in the United States Code is only evidence of law. It's not the law itself, because that has to come from the statutes at large. And we'll do another little section on that talks about that very specifically. But what's happening is they're using the word they call nexus. Now, that's our third word that we have to keep in mind all the time. And that is just the connection or the link between things, people, events, part of a chain of causation. What they use, the word they use is the causation. Is that the approximate cause of the accident? So what we end up having is this nexus, which is the connecting point between people, facts, evidence. And that's what they start to do. They start to make these presumptions using prima facie evidence and using that as the nexus between you and your activities and the legislative acts. You know, we talked about money, Federal Reserve notes, the fact that the FDIC Act turns you into an officer, employee, agent, custodial, acting in a custodial capacity using those Federal Reserve notes, which are for the payment of agents, officers, and employees of the United States, the District of Columbia. Now, the other one we haven't talked about too much is Social Security, that Social Security number. It's those two things that create the nexus based on the prima facie evidence and the presumption that you are a U.S. citizen, that you are property of the United States government, that you're in a territory controlled by the government or acting as an agent, employee, or let's see, what's the other word I'm looking for? An officer of the United States. So I'm going to cut this one off here because I'm not a little bit of difficulty here for a second. But so we need to keep in mind presumption, prima facie, and nexus. Those are the things that we can then turn around and use to our advantage when we start bringing our actions against them and challenging their jurisdiction or the law pronounced. What law is operating upon us right now in this particular situation? What law gives you, Mr. Judge, you, Mr. Law Enforcement Man, you, Mr. Legislator, authority to do what you're doing? And I have an absolute perfect right to compel you to tell me the truth. So we'll talk about how we're going to be doing that, because we're going to be bringing actions against the state. We have to. And we've got to get out of this mindset that we have to prove that we're innocent, that we have to do all these things. No, we have to turn it around on them, and they have got to prove jurisdiction. They have to prove that they have not failed in their known duties to us, and one of those is to protect us, which they have not done. So I will see how this one turns out and talk to you later.